The world knew Cassano Ford as the elusive American billionaire who turned war-torn oil fields into green energy empires. He was a man of contradictions, ruthless in business, compassionate in private, and always 2 steps ahead of danger. Or so he believed. Cassano arrived in Tokyo under a stormy sky, rain slicing through neon like a blade through silk. He was scheduled to speak at a summit on sustainable technologies, but behind the carefully constructed itinerary, he had another reason for coming: to vanish from the eyes of the world for just a little while. Tokyo's crowded anonymity offered him temporary peace, or so he hoped. What he didn't know was that his presence had stirred something in the underground, a quiet ripple that reached a woman named Aiko. Aiko Nakamura wasn't her real name. Names, like faces, were just tools in her arsenal. She moved through the city like vapor, unseen, unheard, but deadly. Trained since childhood in the ancient arts of stealth and modern assassination, Aiko was known in her circles as the Lotus Fang. Beautiful, precise, and absolutely lethal. The order was simple: eliminate Cassano Ford. No traces, no questions. A clean end to a man who had, intentionally or not, cost a shadowy syndicate billions in energy profits. But fate is never clean. Cassano first saw her on a rooftop bar overlooking the Shibuya crossing. She wore a blood-red dress, sipping a dark plum wine, staring out at the endless human flow below. There was something in her stillness that pulled at him, a kind of poised danger, like a tiger watching from the grass. He walked up to her with the air of a man who'd seen everything and feared nothing. "You look like someone who's seen ghosts," he said. She looked at him, her eyes cold and calculating. "Maybe I have," she replied, her accent laced with velvet steel. He offered a small smile, not flinching from her gaze. "Cassano." "Aiko," she lied easily. They shook hands. Her grip was light. Too light. He knew something was off. She knew he knew. And yet, she didn't kill him. Not that night. That was the beginning. He started showing up where she least expected. Tea gardens, art exhibits, even a midnight noodle stand in Ueno. It should have annoyed her. It should have made the job easier. But instead, it did something dangerous. It made her curious. He wasn't the arrogant capitalist she imagined. He quoted Basho and spoke fluent Japanese. He donated anonymously to orphanages and remembered the names of every waitress and cab driver he met. He moved like a man who had everything, yet lived like he had nothing to lose. And still, every night, Aiko kept her blade hidden beneath her sleeve, waiting for the perfect moment to end him. But it never came. Instead, Cassano told her stories about how he used to fix motorcycles with his father in Mississippi, about how his mother once told him that loving someone was like walking on poisonous spikes, painful, dangerous, but the only way to reach their heart. That metaphor lingered in her mind longer than it should have. One night, on a windswept bridge outside the city, Aiko finally drew her blade. Cassano didn't flinch. "I know who you are," he said quietly, "and I know why you're here." She held the blade steady, but her heart betrayed her with one loud, panicked thump. "Then why did you keep coming?" she asked. "Because I wasn't afraid of dying," he said. "I was afraid of not meeting you." Her grip faltered. "I should kill you," she whispered. "Then do it," he said, stepping closer, the tip of her blade now against his chest. "But if you do, you'll never know what this could have been." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with everything unsaid, everything burning beneath their skin. Aiko dropped the blade, and for the first time in years, she trembled. The blade clattered against the concrete of the bridge, a sound too fragile to belong to something so deadly. Aiko's hand hovered in the air for a moment longer, fingers twitching as if trying to remember what killing felt like. But the memory was slipping away, drowned beneath the weight of Cassano's gaze. Rain began to fall again, soft and cold, like Tokyo itself was holding its breath. Cassano stepped forward slowly, his voice low, careful not to startle the moment. "What now?" he asked. Aiko turned her face away, eyes tracing the dark river below. "Now, I disappear." "You could come with me," he offered, not expecting a yes. She gave him a smile, not cold, not lethal, but sad. "You don't know what I've done." "I know enough." "No," she said, turning back to him. You've only seen the mask. You don't know about the blood, the lives I've erased, the families I've shattered. I'm not someone you fall in love with, Cassano. I'm a storm you survive, if you're lucky. He took another step, and now they stood close enough to feel the electricity pass between them. Maybe I like storms, he said. She laughed, short, sharp, surprised. You're insane. I've been called worse. He paused. But I'm serious, Aiko. You think I don't know darkness? You think I built my empire on sunshine and kindness? I've made deals with devils. I've watched good men die because I made the wrong call. I've worn my sins like armor. He reached out, brushing a lock of wet hair from her cheek. She didn't pull away. I'm not asking for redemption, he said. I'm asking for something else. Something impossible. Her eyes searched his, and for a moment she let herself imagine it. A plane out of Narita, a quiet cabin in the Italian Alps. The kind of life that once only existed in childhood dreams and stolen glances at strangers on the train. But reality snapped back like a whip. They'll come for me, she whispered. The people I used to work for, they won't stop until one of us is dead. Cassano's jaw clenched. Then, we make the first move. Aiko blinked. You'd go to war for me? I already am. They didn't run. They prepared. Within hours, Cassano's Tokyo safe house transformed from a sanctuary into a command center. Screens glowed with data, blueprints, encrypted files. Cassano's private tech team feeding intel from across the globe. He had resources that rivaled small governments, and now all of it was aimed at one target, the Black Lotus Syndicate. Aiko stood in the middle of it all, watching her past unfold like a bloody film reel on the monitors. Photos of former associates, targets, missions, a history written in shadows and silent kills. I never thought I'd see this side of you, she said, her voice tight. What side? The warrior. Cassano looked up from the tablet he was studying. You think I got rich selling solar panels and electric cars? This empire was built in boardrooms, yes, but guarded in backrooms. I've fought off corporate raids, sabotage, private militaries. He motioned around. This is just another kind of battlefield. She studied him for a long moment, then asked, What happens when we win? He smiled. Then we build something new. Her fingers brushed the hilt of her sheathed blade. You still trust me with that? Cassano met her eyes. I'd rather die by your hand than live without ever touching your heart. And for the first time, Aiko realized something terrifying. She loved him back. 3 days later, the first assassin came. He never made it past the gate, but he left behind a message, inked into his forearm in black kanji. The spikes are coming. Aiko stared at the body, then at the message. Her heart pounded. It's a code phrase. For what? She looked up. A kill order from the council. They're not just coming for me, they're coming for you too. Cassano didn't flinch. Then let them come, he said. Let them learn what it feels like to walk on poisonous spikes. The night Tokyo lost its silence, the sky was clear, almost too clear. No clouds to hide beneath, no rain to mask footsteps. Just the cold, honest stars above them, watching like silent gods. Aiko knew this kind of quiet. It was the kind that came right before blood hit the floor. Inside the safe house, the lights were dimmed, every entry point sealed. Surveillance drones hovered on the rooftop like birds of prey. Cassano stood in front of a digital map showing the city's underbelly, marked with red dots that flickered like dying embers. They've deployed 5 agents, Cassano said, voice calm but sharp. All ex-special forces, all ghosts on paper. They're closing in fast. Aiko was already slipping into her gear. Not her assassin's uniform. Something new. Something forged in the hours she spent with him. Black leather, flexible armor, no insignia. She wasn't working for anyone anymore. She was fighting for something now. 5's a small number, she said, pulling her blade into place behind her back. They're just scouts. The Lotus doesn't swarm. They sting, slow and lethal. Cassano nodded. Then we turn their sting into a scream. The first kill was hers, an ambush in a subway tunnel. A man with no eyes, surgically removed, replaced with heat-tracking implants. He moved like a machine, but machines have patterns. Aiko had once killed a man with nothing but a length of wire and the echo of a footstep. This was easier. She left him bleeding on the third rail, electricity dancing across his body like a cruel farewell. The second was his. Cassano used a weapon that looked more like a piece of art, something his engineers had been developing for military contracts he refused to sign. A sonic pistol that shattered bone from 30 meters. The assassin had been waiting on a rooftop, silencer aimed at Aiko's head. He never pulled the trigger. Cassano's shot took half his ribs and his balance. Gravity did the rest. 2 down. But each body felt heavier than the last. Not in weight, in consequence. The Lotus would notice, and they would escalate. Later that night, after they'd returned to the safe house, Aiko sat alone in the training room, bathed in the red glow of an emergency lamp. She was sharpening her blade, not because it was dull, but because the rhythm calmed her. Cassano approached silently, watching her from the doorway. "You've killed before," she said without looking up. "But this is different." "Yes?" "Why?" He stepped inside. "Because I'm not protecting an asset or a company. I'm protecting you." She paused, letting the whetstone rest in her lap. "Do you know what that means in my world?" she asked. He knelt across from her. "Tell me." "It means you've already lost. The moment you choose someone over yourself, you've given your enemies a weapon." Cassano leaned closer, his voice low. "Then let them try to use it. Because I've decided I'd rather die for something than live through everything." Their eyes met, the tension no longer dangerous, but intimate. Aiko reached up and touched the side of his face, fingers lingering where his jaw clenched. "You speak like a man who's already chosen how his story ends." He held her hand there steady. "Maybe I have, but I'm hoping ours is a long one." At midnight, a message came through the encrypted channel only Aiko knew how to read. It was simple. One word. Kagamusha. She went cold. Cassano noticed immediately. What does it mean? Her lips barely moved. The white-faced general. He's their enforcer, a myth, but real. I trained under him for 2 years. He taught me how to kill without breathing, how to vanish in crowds. And now, he's coming. She nodded. And if he's coming, this ends one way. Cassano stood, his expression unreadable. Then we changed the ending. Aiko looked at him, fear finally visible in her eyes. You can't fight him, Cassano. He took her hand, pulling her to her feet. We don't fight him. We outsmart him. She wanted to believe that, but in her bones, she felt the truth. The white-faced general wasn't just coming to kill them. He was coming to erase them. It began with silence, not the natural kind. No, this was artificial, engineered. One by one, the safe house systems began to shut down. Surveillance feeds flickered. The hum of the electric fence died out. Even the emergency lights sputtered before darkness swallowed them whole. Cassano froze. Aiko stood death-still beside him, one hand resting on her blade, the other reaching for the small trigger in her sleeve, her last resort escape mechanism. He's here, she whispered. Her voice was barely a breath. The general doesn't knock. A second later, a body slammed against the bulletproof window. A guard, eyes wide open, neck twisted the wrong way. Then came the voice. It echoed through the house, mechanical, cold, laced with venom and mockery. The lotus bleeds. The spike has turned. You disappoint me, little flower. Aiko's blood ran cold. Cassano raised a weapon. Who the hell is that? The man who made me, Aiko said, and the one who swore to destroy me. Cassano's security detail engaged first. 3 elite operatives, all ex-special forces. They barely lasted 40 seconds. The general moved like smoke, appearing behind one, snapping his spine, slicing the throat of another with a whisper of steel, dodging bullets like they were lazy insults. He wore a white no mask, expressionless, blank, eternal. The sight of it made Aiko's heart stutter. Cassano grabbed her hand. We run. No, she hissed. You run. Not without you? No, she snapped, pulling away. He's not here for you, not yet. He'll hunt me. He'll play with me. But you? You still have a chance. Cassano hesitated. His instinct screamed to fight, to stay, to not let her face this alone, but Aiko shoved him toward the escape tunnel. I've walked alone my whole life, she whispered. Let me walk this last spike alone, just long enough to lead him away. He stared at her, then kissed her, hard, once. And then he ran. Aiko moved through the dark like a shadow reborn. She could feel him hunting her. Every breath she took, every floorboard she touched. It was like he was inside her skin. She booby-trapped the halls, set silent charges in doorframes, smoke bombs in vents. When the general entered, fire and fury greeted him. But it didn't slow him, it excited him. He was laughing now. A low, unnatural sound, like bones cracking underwater. "You still think you're my equal?" His voice echoed. "You were always just a pretty knife I kept in my pocket." Aiko launched from the rafters, twin blades flashing, aimed at his throat. Steel met steel in a flurry of sparks. The fight was ballet and butchery. No wasted movement. Just death circling death. But the general was faster, stronger. He struck her across the ribs, once, twice. Bones cracked. She coughed blood and staggered back. He stalked toward her, dragging a tanto across the wall like a lover whispering a secret. "I gave you everything," he said, "and you chose him." Aiko grinned, blood on her teeth. "I didn't choose him," she said. "I chose freedom." And then the floor exploded beneath them. Cassano had doubled back. He couldn't leave her. He'd hacked the detonators she'd set, triggered them all from the outside control box. The blast ripped through the house's foundation, swallowing both Aiko and the general in dust and flame. He dove into the rubble, calling her name, blood trickling from his brow. "Aiko!" No answer. Just fire, concrete, silence, then movement. A figure dragged itself from the smoke, limping, gasping, face smeared in ash. Cassano rushed forward. Aiko collapsed into his arms. "You're insane," she rasped. "Yeah," he said, holding her tight, "but I'm your kind of insane." Behind them, a second figure rose, slower. The mask cracked, the general's face partially revealed. Burned, furious, alive. He raised a blade, one last strike. Aiko turned, pulling her final knife from her boot. The two weapons flew at the same time. Only one hit its mark. The general fell, blade in his chest, his own eyes wide with disbelief. He crumbled to his knees, then to the floor. Dead. Cassano exhaled. But Aiko didn't relax. Her eyes scanned the horizon, the black trees surrounding the wreckage. "He wasn't alone," she said. "They never send the dragon without the serpents." Cassano looked at her. "Then we disappear. Now." She nodded, but her gaze lingered on the general's corpse. "You okay?" he asked. "No," she said softly. "Because I know them. This was just the beginning. They won't forgive this, and they never forget." She turned to him, eyes hard now, steel forged in love and survival. "If we stay together," she said, "we'll be walking on poisonous spikes every day." Cassano took her hand, held it tight. "Then we make every step count." Tokyo had barely begun to rebuild from the fire when a new shadow stretched across the city, one older, deeper, and more patient than the Lotus Syndicate. The Yurai Kai, the Ghost Clan. Unlike the flashy, hyper-modern Lotus, the Yurai Kai were ancient. Born in the aftermath of World War II, built on blood pacts, blackmail, and family curses. Where the Lotus sold death, the Yurai Kai sold legacy, and Cassano Ford had unknowingly stepped right into their nest. 3 years ago, during one of Cassano's aggressive acquisitions in Osaka, a deal had gone south. One of his shell companies bought out a bankrupt tech firm, a cover for laundering billions in Yurai Kai money. Cassano had seen only numbers, no faces, no warnings. That deal cost the Yurai Kai 7 bloodlines worth of honor. And in the world of the Ghost Clan, honor equaled vengeance. They didn't come for him immediately. They waited, plotted. Let the Lotus dance first. And now, with the white-faced general dead, the time had come to collect. Aiko knew something was wrong the moment she stepped into the hotel suite. It was too quiet, the air too still, like death had taken a seat and was waiting politely. She found the red envelope on the bed. No threats, no demands, just one sentence in perfect ink. He owes the Ghost Clan his life. We are here to collect. Her blood froze. The Yurai Kai didn't send letters. They sent death. And if they sent a letter, it meant Cassano was still alive. For now. She opened her encrypted tracker. His signal had stopped. 20 minutes ago. Last ping, an abandoned tea house outside Kyoto. Aiko didn't hesitate. Cassano woke tied to a cedar chair. The room around him was candlelit, ornate, quiet, and terrifying. A single man sat across from him, wearing white gloves and a black suit. His face was covered with a porcelain half-mask painted with cherry blossoms. Polite, elegant, absolutely ruthless. "I apologize for the binding," the man said softly. "We normally do not restrain guests. But you, Mr. Ford, you stole from the dead." Cassano coughed, blood on his lip. "I bought a bankrupt firm." "You bought a grave, sir," the masked man replied, "and buried our future with it." He stood slowly, brushing his gloves. "We will reclaim our loss, in pain, in inches, starting with your fingers." A blade gleamed, but then everything changed. The candles flickered, and the windows exploded. A smoke bomb hit the floor, hissing like a serpent. The masked man turned, reaching for a pistol, too slow. Aiko crashed through the smoke, blade spinning like a silver comet. She landed with a slide, sweeping his legs out. Another masked guard entered. She disarmed him with a kick, elbowed him into a wall, and flipped him into unconsciousness before Cassano could even shout her name. The masked man lunged, only to meet the tip of her blade at his throat. "I'm not Lotus anymore," she hissed, "but I am death." They escaped through the back gardens, leaping over walls and ducking through ancient bamboo groves. The Yurei Kai followed, silent and precise, but Aiko had set traps, just like her mentor once taught her. They didn't make it far. By the time they reached the bullet train station, Cassano was limping, bleeding from a fresh cut to the shoulder. "You came for me," he rasped. Aiko was holding him up, one arm around his waist. "Of course I did. I thought I was the one protecting you." She laughed, dark and soft. "You still are." Cassano looked at her through the pain. "What now?" She didn't answer at first, just stared down the rails of the train platform, as if the future was hidden just beyond the next tunnel. "They won't stop," she said. "Not the Yurei Kai, not the Lotus remnants, not the ghosts or the devils." She turned to him. "But I won't stop either, because I love you, and I'd rather bleed beside you than breathe without you." Cassano touched her face, his thumb tracing a bruise on her cheek. "Then we fight, every step, every spike." And behind them, far down the track, shadows began to gather once more. The train thundered into the station like a dragon in a rush. Gleaming steel, whisper quiet, packed with late-night passengers unaware of the silent war unfolding around them. Aiko and Cassano boarded without speaking, slipping into an empty first-class car at the back. The lights above flickered slightly, the only sign that someone, somewhere, had tampered with the systems. "They'll follow," Cassano murmured, his shoulder bleeding through the gauze. "They're already here," Aiko whispered. She looked up at the security camera in the corner of the cabin. A single red dot blinked once, then twice. That was the signal. Someone was watching them, someone with power. Cassano reached into his coat. "I have a contact in Osaka, Yakuza adjacent, not clean but not loyal to the Ghost Clan either. If we can make it to the city—" "No," Aiko interrupted. "No more deals, no more allies. We can't trust anyone." She stood, eyes scanning the aisle. "They want you." "But they're not here to kill you, Cassano," she said. "Not yet. They're here to take me." Cassano looked at her, the truth settling over him like ice. "They think I'm your weakness." Aiko gave him a broken smile. And they're right. The train sped through the countryside, rain tapping the windows in a frantic rhythm. Cassano's breathing was getting rougher. His shoulder needed stitches. Aiko tore open a medkit from beneath the seat and worked fast, fingers bloodied, heart racing. She didn't notice the figure slipping silently into the car until it was too late. A single passenger, black suit, no expression. A small, black tattoo under his eye. The kanji for silence. A Yurei Kai hitman, one of the elite. He raised a silenced pistol. Aiko shoved Cassano down just as the shot rang out. The bullet shattered the window beside them. Wind and rain burst into the cabin. She leapt across the aisle, twisting in midair, her blade flashing beneath her coat. Steel met bone. A scream stifled by silence. The hitman slumped forward, his pistol clattering to the floor. Aiko caught it mid-drop, flipped it, and fired a single shot into the oncoming second attacker's leg just as he entered the cabin from the opposite door. Cassano scrambled for cover, grabbing the second pistol. He took aim and hesitated. The attacker looked no older than 20. "Cassano!" Aiko shouted. Too late, the boy lunged. But Cassano didn't shoot him. He threw the pistol. By the time the train reached Osaka's outskirts, 2 more agents had been found, dead. One drowned in a bathroom sink, the other folded into a luggage compartment with a broken neck. But then came the worst news of all. The train didn't stop. "Emergency override," Cassano said, reading the control panel. "Someone's hijacked the route. We're being taken somewhere." Aiko's phone vibrated. One message, no sender. "Car 1, come alone or he dies." She stared at it, heart pounding. "They have control of the train, and they want me to come alone." Cassano looked at her. "That's a trap." "I know." "Then we go together." She shook her head. "If they see you, they'll kill you first. I'm not letting you go into that car alone." Aiko stepped forward, hands trembling, but not with fear, with something worse. "Cassano," she whispered, "I need you to trust me." "I do." "Then stay alive, please." Before he could protest, she kissed him, quick, desperate, deep with everything unsaid. Then she was gone, disappearing down the aisle like smoke into the storm. Car 1 was empty, except for a woman in a white kimono. Her hair was silver. Her face painted white like a no performer. Her eyes were black as oil. The Onna Kaicho, the Ghost Clan's matriarch, a living myth. "You're the lost petal," the woman said. "The broken blossom that never fell. You should have died long ago." Aiko stepped into the center of the car, blades sheathed. "Then finish it." "Oh no," the matriarch said, her voice like falling snow. "You misunderstand. I don't want your death." She pointed to a tablet on the table beside her. On the screen, Cassano bound again. Live feed. "I want your soul." Aiko's face hardened. "You will return to us. You will serve. You will kill for me. Or he dies, slowly." The matriarch leaned forward, whispering, "You trained with shadows, child, but you never learned what it means to belong to them." Aiko's hand trembled, and in that moment, she had a choice. Walk back into the darkness she was born in, or burn it down once and for all. The train slowed, not at a station, but in the middle of nowhere. Fields of wind and silence on either side. Aiko stood in the lead car, the Onakaicho's black eyes gleaming like obsidian shards. The tablet still streamed the image of Cassano tied to a chair in a rusted warehouse somewhere near the coast. "You belong to us," the matriarch said again. "Choose." Aiko didn't blink. "You made one mistake," she said calmly, pulling a small silver pin from her sleeve. The matriarch frowned. "What is that?" "A memory," Aiko whispered, "and a key." She pressed the pin into her palm. The moment her blood touched the hidden needle, a signal activated. Elsewhere, across the shadows of Osaka, silent machines hummed to life. Weapons caches she had hidden years ago. Surveillance drones she'd programmed during her Lotus days. An entire deadman network she had embedded in the underbelly of the Yurei-kai during her years as their top assassin. Aiko had never left the Yurei-kai. She had infiltrated them, and now she was taking them down. Within 30 minutes, the First Lord fell. Lord Kenzo, the bringer of coins, was drinking tea in his high-rise suite when his penthouse windows blew inward. A trio of smoke grenades filled the room as Aiko's drones dropped from the ceiling, releasing a neurotoxin that paralyzed his guards in seconds. The last thing Kenzo saw was Aiko's face on a screen. Debt paid. Then blackness. Lord Number 1, eliminated. Next came Lady Hachiko, the matron of secrets. She was in an underground bathhouse, surrounded by her whispering girls, when the walls cracked open and a flood of sleeping gas rolled in. One of her attendants removed her mask to reveal Aiko's smile underneath. "You trained me well," she whispered, dropping the matron into the hot spring with a shock device set to overload. Lord Number 2, gone. Word traveled fast, but not fast enough. Lord Tyra, the Iron Hand, sent his personal guards to secure the family shrine where he performed his weekly rituals. But he arrived to find his guards already dead, their heads bowed in prayer. The shrine was rigged. He screamed as fire consumed him from beneath the floor. Lord Number 3, ashes. Panic infected the Yurei-kai like a virus. Their networks collapsed. Their bunkers were breached. Safe houses became traps. Aiko's knowledge of their inner workings was precise, surgical. She didn't wage war. She performed symphonies of ruin. One by one, the remaining lords gathered in a hidden fortress outside Kyoto, their power slipping like blood through their fingers. The matriarch herself, shaken and exhausted, appeared before the surviving council. "We underestimated her," she said. "No," whispered Lord Ishimaru, his hand trembling. "We made her, and now she's unmaking us." "She'll come for us next," another said, and then the fortress screens flickered on. There she was, calm, composed, drenched in rain and shadow. "I told you once," Aiko said. "I don't want your empire. I want one man." She held up a detonator. "You let him go, now, or I erase every trace of your bloodline from the map." Silence, and then, begging. "Stop, enough, please." "You have him," the matriarch choked out. "He's yours, no more blood." Aiko nodded once. Wise. She pressed the button, not the detonation, but the signal. A tracker embedded in Cassano's jacket activated. Her allies, rogue ex-Lotus agents loyal only to her, breached the warehouse. Cassano was free before the council finished their breathless prayers. She found him on a rooftop in Kobe, the wind slicing past, the city lights glittering below like broken promises. He turned as she approached, his shirt torn, blood drying on his skin. "You burned an empire for me," he said quietly. She stopped inches from him. "No," she said, "I burned it to be free. You were the reason I finally lit the match." Cassano touched her face. "They begged." She nodded. "Lords don't beg, until I make them." A long pause. Then he whispered, "Are we safe?" Aiko looked past him toward the city, toward the quiet spaces where shadows still watched, waiting. "No," she said, "but they'll never see us coming again." Cassano leaned in. Then they kissed, hard, hungry, alive, and behind them the world burned quietly. The Yurei Kai was crippled, but not dead. From the ashes of the fallen lords, something darker stirred. Not loyalists, fanatics. The Kuroban, the Black Watch, an ancient splinter faction believed to have disbanded decades ago. But the fall of the council had awakened them. They didn't care about honor. They didn't want to rebuild. They wanted vengeance. And their first target was the woman who had made their gods bleed. Chapter 27. The Black Paper Gift. It began with a funeral, not a traditional one. No bodies, no mourners. Just a black origami crane, left on the windshield of Cassano's private car in Venice, where he and Aiko had gone to disappear. Aiko stared at it for a long time, her face pale. Cassano reached out, touching the fragile paper. "What does it mean?" "It's not a warning," she whispered. "It's a promise." Later that night, the lights in their apartment flickered. A message was painted across the walls in lacquer black ink. Not written, brushed, like calligraphy from a temple scroll. "Your sins have been recorded. The Black Watch sees all." The attack started small. Cassano's offshore accounts froze, blocked by an invisible hand. His safe houses across Europe were breached. Friends who owed him favors began turning up missing, then dead. Aiko's ex-Lotus allies were hunted one by one, each one assassinated with her own techniques. Whoever was leading the Kuroban knew her. "They're not just soldiers," Aiko said, poring over old files. "They're disciples, raised in darkness, trained in vengeance." Cassano studied a photo of their first known strike, a body hanging upside down from a Tokyo bridge, the kanji for traitor carved into the chest. "What do they want?" Aiko looked at him. "You, alive, me, dead." They tried to run, to vanish, but the Kuroban didn't chase. They herded. One night, while hiding in an abandoned chapel in Venice, a phone rang, Cassano's personal line. The one no one should have had. He picked it up. A voice, calm, female, ancient in tone. "You stole our ghost. You made her bleed the names of her masters into the dirt. Now we want balance." Then a scream on the other end of the line. It was Mika, one of the last remaining rogue Lotus agents, someone Aiko had once called sister. Cassano dropped the phone. Aiko caught it. "Mika?" she whispered, only sobbing. Then silence. Then the voice again. One petal at a time. The line went dead. They returned to Japan, Not because they wanted to, because they had to. Aiko knew the Black Watch wouldn't stop until she was gone or enslaved again. She needed to end it, truly end it. "We go back to the garden," she told Cassano. "The garden?" he asked. She nodded. "Where I was made." Hidden deep in the mountains north of Kyoto, the garden wasn't a garden at all. It was a fortress, a monastery of death, where children were trained to kill before they could read, where fear was used as fire and identity was carved out of obedience. No one had left it alive, except her. Getting inside was suicide. But Aiko didn't walk through the front door. She burned through the side. Explosives hidden in a water truck got her inside the walls. Cassano provided air support using a hacked recon drone. Aiko moved like a storm, one room after another, blade in hand, eyes cold, silent. But the Kuroban were waiting, led by Junhyo, a former monk-turned-killer who had once trained beside Aiko. Scarred, enraged, obsessed. "You broke the cycle," he growled, blocking her path. "You spit on everything we were given." "No," she said. "I survived it." He charged. Their fight was brutal, clash of memories and blood. They used no words, only fists, knives, fire. Aiko took a blade to the thigh, a broken rib, but she moved like pain made her sharper. Cassano found her hours later, barely standing, covered in blood, but alive. Behind her, Junhyo lay broken, throat slashed, hands still clutched around a torn scrap of her old lotus sash. At the heart of the garden, they found the final chamber. Inside, the true leader of the Kuroban waited, an old woman with long white hair, the seer, the original architect of the Black Watch. She sat on a silk cushion surrounded by smoke and incense, as if nothing was burning outside. "You've proven your point, girl," she said without opening her eyes. "You're not a petal. You're a thorn." Aiko raised her blade, but the seer smiled. "You kill me, you become me." Aiko hesitated. Cassano stepped forward. "Then let me do it." But Aiko stopped him. "No," she said softly. "Mercy is the last knife they'll never see coming." She lowered her blade. "You live, but the garden dies." She planted the final device, fire tracing through the floorboards. They left as the mountain burned behind them, the garden collapsing in flames like a dying god. They didn't speak on the flight out of Japan, not at first. But as the coast faded beneath them, Cassano turned to her. "Is it over?" Aiko looked out the window. "For now," she said. "But ghosts don't sleep. They wait." Cassano took her hand. "Then we keep moving." Aiko closed her eyes, head resting on his shoulder. "And we never stop." 2 months passed. The world believed Aiko Nakamura was dead. News of the garden's destruction echoed through the underground like a warning shot. "Don't chase the storm. She'll burn your house down." Cassano and Aiko drifted through cities like ghosts. Morocco, Lisbon, Tbilisi, always changing names, always moving under the radar. But each step was like walking on a thread stretched too tight. Aiko could feel it in her bones. The quiet was fake. The peace was borrowed. And something was coming to collect. They were in Istanbul when the message came. This time, there was no crane. No blood-stained threats. Just a single photo slipped into their hotel room door. Aiko and Cassano, captured mid-laugh on a rooftop bar in Marrakesh. The photo had a red X over Cassano's face. Aiko's eyes narrowed. "They're not just watching," she said, gripping the photo. "They're closing in." Cassano took the picture, turned it over. A name written in elegant, ink-brushed kanji, Jiro. Aiko nearly dropped it. Jiro wasn't Kuroban. He wasn't Lotus. He wasn't even Yuraikai. He was worse. Jiro was freelance, the assassin of assassins, the one they used when all else failed. A ghost in the shape of a man. No allegiances, no limits, no mercy. The first attempt came that same night. Cassano woke to the sound of ticking. Tiny, mechanical, metallic. He rolled off the bed just as the lamp beside him exploded, glass and fire erupting across the suite. A bomb, pressure triggered, set beneath the side table, timed to his weight. Aiko was already moving, blade in hand, diving through smoke and flame. Cassano reached the hallway in time to see a figure walking away, calm as a breeze. No mask, no rush. Jiro. He turned his head slightly, just enough for Aiko to see the scar that split his cheek like a dry riverbed. She shouted his name, but he didn't stop. He just raised 2 fingers in farewell and vanished. Jiro didn't hunt like a soldier. He hunted like an artist. Every attempt was a masterpiece of death. A poisoned espresso left at a cafe table, a mirrored corridor rigged with tripwires, a piano tuned with razor wire hidden beneath the keys. Cassano nearly died 3 times in 5 days. Aiko stopped each one, but barely. They needed help, and there was only one person who could offer it. Keide Mori, once a Lotus instructor, now a mercenary smuggler based in the Balkans. She owed Aiko her life. They found her in a half-ruined fortress in Montenegro, drinking plum wine and playing Russian roulette with a Serbian arms dealer. When she saw Aiko, she just smiled. Finally, Kaede said, "The bloody flower returns." Kaede had a plan. Lured Jiro into the Parisian catacombs. Underground. No escape, no drones. Just walls, blades, and the darkness he loved. It worked, at first. They left Cassano as bait, sitting alone in a candlelit corridor, breathing steady, heart pounding. Jiro came. He didn't speak. He just stepped into the circle of light and tilted his head, studying Cassano like a puzzle he'd already solved. Then came the steal. But Cassano moved. He dodged. And behind him, Aiko dropped from the ceiling. The fight that followed wasn't graceful. It was savage. Jiro fought like a machine. 2 blades, twin pistols, movements so precise they could have been choreographed. Aiko countered with chaos. She used the terrain, kicked bones into his path, struck low and fast, feinted with everything. She finally got inside his guard, blade to his ribs. But it stopped. Jiro smirked. "Not deep enough," he said. Then he stabbed her. Aiko hit the ground, hard. Cassano screamed. Jiro turned toward him, bloody blade in hand. But that was his mistake, because Aiko wasn't down. She faked it, just long enough for Cassano to move behind him, just long enough to slide a wire loop from his coat pocket. Cassano strangled him with everything he had, everything he feared, everything he loved. Jiro staggered, struggling. Aiko rose, coughing blood, and with her last ounce of strength. She drove her blade through Jiro's heart from behind. He collapsed into the dust, not like a monster, but like a man finally out of time. They burned Jiro's body that night. No ceremonies, no mourning, just flames and silence. Cassano stitched Aiko's wound with trembling fingers. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Aiko whispered, "They're not done." "I know," Cassano said. "There's a deeper layer," she continued. "Someone gave Jiro our photo. Someone who wants to finish what the Yurei started. This goes beyond syndicates, beyond assassins." Cassano leaned in close. "Then we go deeper." Aiko looked up, firelight in her eyes. "You understand what that means, don't you?" He nodded. "We stop running." She smiled. "We start hunting." They left Paris behind like smoke in the wind, destination unknown, at least to anyone who wasn't already watching. Aiko knew the whispers well. There was always someone above the lords, above the syndicates. A council of old money and war scars. The ones who sold empires like poker chips. The Kurokumo, the Black Web. A hidden conglomerate of ex-generals, politicians, corporate ghosts, and underground rulers who used the Yurei Kai, Lotus, and Kuroban as their blades. When those blades broke, the web simply found new ones. Jiro had been theirs. Now they knew Cassano and Aiko were more than targets. They were a threat. Keide helped them track the signal embedded in Jiro's comms. It led them to an unlisted island in the Philippine Sea, where satellite activity was masked, encrypted, and pulsing with underground data traffic. Cassano landed the jet himself. The island didn't have a name on any map, but the trees were wired. Drones patrolled the canopy. Guards wore no insignia. Their weapons were military grade. Their eyes were dead. "This isn't a stronghold," Cassano muttered. "It's a nerve center." They moved at night, using the moonlight and the jungle as cover. Inside the compound, they found a war room. Not of bombs or guns, but screens. Dozens of them, all watching. Them, Cassano's name, Aiko's face, every place they had ever hidden, every person they'd ever spoken to. They weren't just targets. They were a case study. The screens flickered. A face appeared. Old, wrinkled, unreadable, male, or maybe female, heavily obscured. "You've cost us millions," The voice rasped. But money can be replaced. Aiko stepped forward, blade drawn. And honor? The figure laughed, low and slow. Honor is a game for fools. We control chaos. You are chaos. You're afraid, Cassano said. The voice paused. Curious, it replied. Your love is your shield. That makes it your leash. Cassano narrowed his eyes. Come find us, the voice said, or we'll find you. Then the screens went black. They didn't leave empty-handed. Before escaping, Aiko copied a fragment of the server, encrypted data showing meetings, locations, names. Kurokumo lieutenants, the spiders beneath the web. Within hours, they had their first location. Shanghai, a private skyscraper, one man, one target. Akira Hanzo, an ex-Yakuza financier turned global arms broker. A man who had sold drones to both sides of civil wars and slept under the illusion of power. Aiko and Cassano didn't go in quietly. They brought war. K-Day provided backup, disabling external security. Cassano set the building's fire suppression system to rain kerosene mist. Aiko walked through it like vengeance incarnate. Hanzo tried to run. He didn't make it past the elevator. When she reached him, trembling and wide-eyed, he begged. I'm not the one in charge. I know, she said, blade hovering at his throat. Then why? Because you signed the order. She slit his throat in one clean motion. As Hanzo's tower burned behind them, the message spread. The black web was bleeding. Cassano watched the flames reflect in Aiko's eyes. How many more? He asked. She looked out into the night. Not enough. She turned to him, her voice calm and cold. This is no longer survival, Cassano. He nodded. This is war. A week later, a diplomat was found hanging from a steel beam in Prague. 2 days after that, an entire Swiss bunker, formerly a black web command node, was flooded, its files wiped, its occupants silenced. And then, the one that shook them, a banker in London. He was found screaming on the edge of Tower Bridge, ranting about a woman with blood in her smile before he threw himself into the river. No one believed him, except the ones who were next. Each of these targets had one thing in common. They were pieces of the Kurokumo board, and Aiko was removing them one by one. But now the web tightened. They sent someone different, not a soldier, not a killer, a widow. She introduced herself as Senka, meaning shadow flower. Elegant, mid-40s, always dressed in ivory and silence. Her late husband had been a Yurei Kai enforcer, murdered during Aiko's rampage. But unlike the others, Senka didn't seek revenge through blood. She used information, blackmail, diplomacy twisted like a knife, and she knew more than anyone should have. About Aiko, about Cassano, about Cassano's family. How does she know these things? He asked Aiko one night, as they holed up in a weather-battered lighthouse on the edge of Malta. She was born in the dark, Aiko said, jaw clenched. She's not a spider, she's the web itself. And then came the video. Cassano's brother, Elias, missing for years, presumed dead, appeared on a grainy feed, tied to a chair, alive, bruised. Walk away, Senka's voice said, cool and clean, or I pull the thread. Cassano had buried that pain years ago, but now it clawed its way back into his chest like a broken ghost. They tracked the signal to Dubrovnik, an old coastal fortress converted into a luxury villa, but beneath it a labyrinth of tunnels used by the Black Web during the Cold War. It was a trap. Aiko knew it. Cassano knew it. But some traps you walk into anyway. The moment they stepped inside, the walls sealed. The lights went red. A digital voice echoed through the chamber. Let's see what love is worth, when it bleeds. Senka's voice. First came the maze. Every wrong turn opened a flood of gas or collapsing walls. Then came the illusions. Holographic projections of Cassano's family, friends, Aiko herself begging for help, screaming in fake agony. They were meant to break him. Aiko pressed her palm to his chest in the dark. They want you to lose yourself. They'll fail, he said, eyes locked on hers. Because I already found you. They reached the central chamber after nearly an hour, exhausted, bloodied, out of ammunition. At the center, Elias, alive, but wired to a heart rate-triggered explosive vest. Senka appeared behind a thick glass wall, sipping white tea as if hosting brunch. You came, she said. How romantic. Let him go, Cassano demanded. I will, she smiled, but I want something more than death. She turned to Aiko. I want your obedience." Aiko stepped forward, expression unreadable. Cassano grabbed her arm. "Don't." "I have to," she said. "For Elias, for us." She walked to the sensor pad. If she placed her hand there, Senka could lock her neural signature into a black web servitude protocol. A digital leash, unbreakable. "I'll be their ghost again," Aiko whispered. "No," Cassano's voice cracked. "We do this our way." Then a whisper, barely audible, from Elias. "Back, panel." Cassano's eyes flicked to the corner of the wall, a loose circuit panel. And in that second, he remembered something. Jiro's heart monitor. The one they hacked during the Paris mission. They could override the heartbeat trigger. He moved fast, pulled the transmitter from his watch, slid it across the floor. Elias kicked it up with his foot, despite the pain, and shoved it under the vest sensor. Cassano triggered the override. Green light. "Now!" Aiko screamed. She drew her blade, threw it. The glass shattered. Senka tried to run, but Aiko was faster. She cornered her at the far wall, blade pressed to the widow's throat. "You can't kill an idea," Senka hissed. "No," Aiko said, "but I can kill you." And she did. One clean stroke. Senka fell. The web trembled, and Aiko turned to Cassano shaking. "It's not over." He walked to her slowly, pulled her into his arms. "No," he said. "It's just beginning." Senka's death sent tremors through the underworld. The web had lost its voice, its face, its balance, but the storm that followed was not silence. It was war. The remaining Kurokumo members, scattered, paranoid, enraged, activated the protocol Aiko feared most. Project Kuroum, Black Rain. Not assassins, not soldiers, but civilian agents, ordinary people groomed for years. Programmers, pilots, nurses, even children of politicians, each with an embedded command chip, ready to die or kill at a single signal. Cassano stared at the decrypted file in horror. "They've created a suicide army." Aiko's face was still. "No," she said. "They've created a last resort." Cassano looked at her. "And what are we?" She met his eyes, voice a whisper. The final answer. Chapter 52. The War Room. They went dark again. Off-grid, underground. With Kaidi, Elias, and 2 surviving rogue Lotus agents, they formed their last cell. Unit, Shirokiba, White Fang. Base of operations, a decommissioned Russian submarine docked beneath the Arctic Circle. Mission, neutralize Kuroaim and kill what's left of the web. Aiko plotted the strategy. Each Kuroaim hub was protected by civilian AI, tripwired to trigger mass casualties if attacked directly. Cassano provided the weakness. "Their money," he said. "They need the power grid. They're running millions of credits through geothermal plants in Iceland, Fiji, Siberia." Kaede grinned. "We cut the blood flow, then we cut the head." They struck first. Aiko and Kaede breached the plant under the veil of a glacial storm. Cassano, operating remote drones from a support vessel, guided them through digital firewalls. Inside, they found 30 Kuroaim agents wired to uplinks, eyes glossed over in trance. Alive, but not themselves. Aiko moved through them gently, placing inhibitors on their neural ports. "They don't know what they are," she whispered. "They're victims," Cassano said in her earpiece. Then, alarm. Too late. A detachment of real Black Web enforcers dropped from the ceiling. Full combat armor, no hesitation. The fight was chaos. Aiko moved like a flame in wind, Kaede covering her flank, blades and gunfire echoing through steel and ice. In the end, the plant collapsed behind them. The bodies burned. The blood washed into snow. First artery severed. From Iceland to Siberia to Jakarta, they struck. Each hit louder, riskier, bloodier. 8 facilities in 12 days. Each kill brought them closer to the web's core. The 9 spiders, the last remaining architects of Kurokumo, hiding in a mobile fortress somewhere in the Pacific, shifting coordinates daily, protected by fleets, satellites, misinformation, and fear. Aiko stood over a dying lieutenant in Jakarta, blade pressed to his gut. "Where's the fortress?" she growled. The man coughed blood and laughed. "You'll never get close." Aiko leaned in. "Watch me." She twisted. With Kaide's help, they found it. The Arachne platform. Floating fortress, nuclear-powered, weaponized against the sky itself. Cassano stared at it from the surveillance satellite they hijacked. "It's a city of war." "No," Aiko whispered. "It's a graveyard. They just haven't been buried yet." Final plan, 1 strike. All or nothing. Cassano would fly in solo on a stealth glider outfitted with signal jammers and virus injectors. Aiko, Katie, and Elias would infiltrate by sea, breaching the hull from below. The team embraced, knowing this could be their last sunrise. "I should have told you this sooner," Cassano said to Aiko. She stopped him. "I know. But I want to say it," she turned. "I love you," he said, "in every language, every lifetime, every step on every spike." She didn't cry, not yet. "I love you too," she said. "Enough to end the world if they take you from me again." They kissed once, deep and final. Then they launched. The assault was war poetry. Cassano's glider sliced through radar, landing silently atop the platform. He disabled the comms tower and jammed the kill signal before anyone could reach the Kuroaim operatives. Aiko rose from the sea like vengeance incarnate, soaked in salt water and death. Inside, they fought. Room to room, one spider dead, then another, then three in a gas-blasted corridor. Cassano reached the command chamber last, just as Aiko faced the final spider, a withered man in a carbon exosuit, eyes glowing red with AI feedback. "You think you're righteous," he hissed, "but you're just the sharpest blade. You'll dull or break." Aiko stared at him. "I don't break." She fired one bullet through his eye. The fortress exploded behind them. The final spike broken. The final thread severed. The web gone. They stood together on the deck of the evac ship, bleeding, bruised, but whole. Aiko wrapped her arms around Cassano and whispered, "Now we walk forward. No more spikes. Just sky." Cassano looked at her, eyes tired but alive. "Until the ghosts return," she smiled. "Then we remind them who owns the night." 6 months later, the world had turned quietly, slowly, as if the war Aiko and Cassano fought was too large for time itself to fully digest. They lived now in the highlands of southern Chile, off-grid, a cabin wrapped in vines and mist, overlooking a lake so still it looked like the sky was lying down. Aiko woke at dawn every day and walked barefoot into the forest. Cassano wrote in a battered notebook, drafting stories he'd never publish, stories about the things they'd done and the people they'd lost. For the first time in years, they breathed. For the first time in forever, Aiko allowed herself to imagine something dangerous, a life that didn't end in fire. But peace is a delicate thing, and the past doesn't sleep. It started with static on the solar radio, then a transmission, encrypted, buried in white noise. But Aiko recognized the cadence, Lotus protocol, buried deep in her blood. She cracked the code. And what she found? Cassano walked in to see her sitting on the cabin floor, files scattered like a shattered mirror around her. He kneeled beside her. "What is it?" Someone accessed the archive," she whispered. He froze. "I thought it was destroyed in the garden." "I did too." The archive was the digital vault of everything Aiko had ever done. Missions, identities, kill lists, the ghost she made, the blood she spilled. She hadn't just shut the door when she left the assassin's world. She'd tried to burn the house down. But now someone had opened it. And worse, someone was using it. They tracked the signal to Berlin, and what they found chilled them to the core. A girl, no older than 12, executing a black web survivor in a crowded station. One clean strike, no emotion. Vanished before security could blink. The footage wasn't leaked. It was sent directly to Aiko, with a message: "You cast a long shadow. We walk in it now." Cassano clenched his fists. "A clone?" "No," Aiko said. "Something worse." The child's eyes weren't empty. They were controlled. They uncovered the truth in fragments. A biotech company in Zurich had purchased fragments of Lotus and Kuroban data on the black market. They were using it to create replicas, not clones, not machines. Children bred from stolen DNA, enhanced with neurotech, trained from birth to become perfect weapons, empty of identity, but programmed with her exact style. They called it Project High No Tori, the Phoenix program, because you can burn a flower to ash, but under the right conditions, it grows back in fire. Cassano stared at the documents. "They're trying to build you." "No," Aiko said coldly. "They're trying to replace me." And then the message came again. The girl is just the beginning. We will finish what the world failed to. The era of shadows isn't over. It's only beginning. Aiko stood at the edge of the lake the next morning, watching the water ripple with cold wind. Cassano walked up behind her, quiet. If we go back in, we lose this, she said. The quiet, the stillness, us. But if we don't, then they take everything we fought for. They turn me into a myth they control. They teach little girls that love is weakness and obedience is power. She looked at him, fire back in her veins. I can't let that happen. Cassano reached into his coat and pulled out two things, her old lotus blade and a wedding ring. Aiko stared. You're proposing in the middle of a war declaration? I don't know if we'll survive the next one, he said. But if we do, I want this to be real, not just blood and ghosts, us. She took the ring, slipped it on her finger, then took the blade, and smiled. Let's go rewrite their prophecy. Deep in the Peruvian Andes, hidden behind waterfalls and wired cliffs, an old narcotics plantation had been transformed into something far more dangerous. A training ground. Aiko and Cassano didn't just return to the fight, they built an army. Not killers, not tools, survivors. Children rescued from Project Hai no Tori. Orphans taken by the old systems. Agents with nowhere left to run. Every student trained in philosophy, language, combat, and most importantly, choice. It wasn't the Garden of Death. It was the Garden of Rebellion. Cassano named it Hana no Chi, the Blood Flower, and it would be the last thing their enemies ever underestimated. Their first lesson, a live ambush. Aiko stood at the front of the class, eyes calm, hand on her blade. 20 students, none over 18, surrounded her. She gave them a single command: disarm me. They failed, one after another, flipped, deflected, pinned. But Aiko didn't strike to injure. She struck to teach. You're fast, she said to one. You're clever, she said to another, but you all fight alone. She pointed to the smallest among them, a quiet girl named Ione, once a Hai no Tori test subject, still haunted by command triggers buried deep in her brain. You watched, Aiko said. Ione nodded. You didn't move. Because I knew, she whispered. They couldn't win unless they moved as one. Aiko smiled and handed her the blade. While Hana no Chi bloomed in secret, the Phoenix program evolved, no longer hiding. They had gone corporate, operating under the name Tenchi Dynamics. The project's leadership posed as a humanitarian tech firm, developing defense-focused neurotech for disaster zones. In truth, they were breeding killers faster, younger, meaner. And they'd built their first public prototype, a girl named Serafina. She looked 16, but inside she was a cocktail of stolen memories, harvested skills, and programmable rage. They released her in New York during a controlled demo. She stopped a staged kidnapping on camera. The world cheered. Aiko watched the footage in silence. She's got my stance. Cassano leaned in. She's also got your rage. And behind Serafina's glossy heroics, real deaths followed. Quiet, clean, off camera. The Phoenix didn't want just a replacement. They wanted a legacy. When Serafina's name was whispered in South Africa, Aiko and her team moved, not to kill, to test. They set a false flag op in Johannesburg. One of their own, Katie's protege, a boy named Neo, posed as a rogue arms dealer. Word was leaked, traps laid. Serafina came, but she didn't attack. She infiltrated, silently. Killed a guard posing as a civilian, just to send a message. Neo barely made it out alive. She's not just a killer, he told Aiko. She's perfected. Aiko stared at the blood on his jacket. No, she's hollow, and they filled her with me. Cassano joined her later, watching the footage. She's what you'd be if you never met me. Aiko nodded slowly, which means I know exactly how to end her. Chapter 67, The Garden Strikes. First. It began with cyber strikes. Cassano's network crashed Tenchi Dynamics satellite relays, hijacked press briefings, released private security footage of Serafina killing a bystander in Berlin, one they'd scrubbed clean. Then the hacks exposed names. Board members, doctors, investors. One of them, a woman named Kira Voss, was assassinated the next day. But not by Aiko, by Serafina. The Phoenix had built a soldier so ruthless, they couldn't even trust her. Aiko stood at the cliffside above Hana no Chi. Her students trained below. Her past hunted her, and her future stood behind her, Cassano, hand in hers. "They're going to come," he said, "with everything." "Let them," she replied. "Do you think we're ready?" Aiko looked down at her students, once broken, now blooming in fire and purpose. "I don't need them to be perfect," she said. "I just need them to believe." Cassano pulled something from his jacket, a ring, a new one, plain, solid, real. "Then let's make this official." She looked at him and nodded. They kissed under a rain of petals blown from the garden below. Serafina was everything Tenchi Dynamics promised. Faster than Aiko, smarter than any weaponized AI, able to calculate kill paths and emotion responses in real time. But what her handlers didn't know, what they couldn't calculate, was the consequence of memory. Because when they fed her Aiko's history, they didn't just give her data, they gave her doubt. In her dreams, Serafina saw flashes of a life she never lived. A child on a tatami mat, learning to fold cranes. A man with gentle eyes and fire in his fists. Cassano, a voice whispering, "You are more than a weapon." She started hesitating, first in missions, then in training. Then during a kill she was ordered to make. She froze. Let the target walk. Her handler screamed in her ear, but she whispered something back that chilled them to their bones. "I think I loved him once, in someone else's life." Chapter 70, The Defection Protocol. Cassano intercepted the footage. He and Aiko watched Serafina stopping mid-mission, then vanishing. "She's splitting," Cassano said. "She's waking up," Aiko corrected. They tracked her to Nepal, a monastery hidden beneath a collapsed mountain pass. Aiko went alone. She found Serafina kneeling in the courtyard, bare hands in the earth, eyes red from tears she couldn't understand. "You came," she said without looking up. "I had to," Aiko said. "You're my shadow." "No," Serafina whispered. "I'm your mirror." And when she finally looked up, Aiko saw not a weapon, but a girl terrified of being real. They didn't fight. They talked. All night. Aiko told her about Cassano, about the garden, about the weight of killing with a heart that still beats. Serafina cried again, quiet, sharp sobs. "They put your pain inside me," she said, "but I feel it. It's mine now." "You can choose," Aiko said. "That's what they never wanted us to know. We can choose." And for the first time, Serafina reached out, not to strike, but to hold. "Help me," she said. "Please." And Aiko did. She brought her home, to the garden. Tenchi Dynamics didn't take the defection lightly. They launched a kill order on Serafina, not through assassins, through a fail-safe signal embedded in her cerebral spine. Cassano barely intercepted it in time, working side by side with Kade to hack and override the neural sequence. Serafina screamed for hours, convulsed, nearly died. But she lived, and when she woke, she was free. The Phoenix had fallen, and something new stood in its place. The final war began not with bullets, but broadcast. Aiko, Serafina, and Cassano leaked everything. The Phoenix trials, the archive files, the failed cloning attempts, the assassinations, the puppeteering of governments, the buyers, the politicians, the gods behind the curtain. The world panicked. Tenchi Dynamics tried to deny it, then silence it, then erase it. But Hana no Chi struck first. 30 elite students, 2 Lotus veterans, 1 hybrid assassin who had become more than a weapon, and Aiko. They breached Tenchi's final stronghold, an underwater city off the coast of Okinawa. They fought like a memory sharpened into steel. Cassano led the tech team. Serafina led the vanguard. Aiko walked into the central chamber and stood before the final architect of it all, a withered man behind a glass wall, begging. "You're not a god," she said. "You're a parasite." And she cut the power. A year later, the war was over. The archive deleted. The garden was no longer a fortress. It was a school. Serafina taught meditation. Kaede taught ethics. Aiko taught peace before war. Cassano taught stories. And one morning, beneath the falling petals of blood-red trees, Aiko and Cassano stood in front of their students. No more blades, No more commands, just rings on their fingers, and a vow to walk forward, not on poisonous spikes, but on the soft earth they fought to make real.